Hello everybody, welcome back to maybe a long awaited video for some of you guys. Oh, I dropped my bag. I'm glad a lot of you guys are sticking around and enjoying my content. But who is this man? Is he a different person? As you can probably tell, I've got a new mic, so hopefully this sounds a lot better. In fact, it sounds a lot better when I play back my own recordings, so yeah, you won't have to listen to ear rape me anymore. Sorry it took so long to get this out. I've literally been camping with this script for like 4 days for this moment. But now my mic is finally here, so yay. Alright, back to the video. Welcome everybody to the second part of this series, which is no longer called Finding the Perfect Area for You. And instead I'm just going to call it Tablet Beginners, because that's shorter and less clickbaity. In this video, we're going to have a look at how to decide on your area. So, like I did in the previous video, I'll just quickly walk through what I'll be discussing in this video. Note that I won't be explaining how to install Hawku's drivers, so if you want to know how, just check the description, it's pretty straightforward. Welcome back to Osu School, fellow students. In this video, you know what? Fuck this. This is crusty as fuck. It's like I made this image in paint. I'm having none of that.
Boom.
There we go. This is much better. Sorry about that. So now you've watched my previous video, or even if you haven't, I'm going to assume that you've chosen a comfortable grip. The way this video is going to be laid out is, first of all, I'm going to show you a nice visualization of what areas the pros use, and therefore explain that area is completely preference. After that, I'll explain how you can find a comfortable area on your own. Just a disclaimer for you peeps, I will not be going in depth on deciding between hover or drag, but I will mention in my examples whether the pros are using hover or drag for their playstyle. Deciding between hover and drag will be in the next video. I'll also be trying to explain the advantages and disadvantages of each area as best as I can, although these benefits and drawbacks may not even exist at all. I will give it my best attempt to explain the decision behind choosing these areas. I want to again iterate that the area you choose has to be based on your comfort. The area, no matter how big or small, will not limit your aim. Enough talking, let's get straight into it. Area is entirely preference. Realistically, you should not be ashamed of what area you use if you find it to be the most comfortable. Here we have a CTH480, except it's not a CTH480, it's a drawing of a CTH480. I'm going to use this as the base for the visual, so that you can see how the area roughly scales to the size of a CTH480, just an example of a tablet. All the pros I'm listing here obviously won't all be using the CTH480, they choose whatever tablet they want to use. The visuals here just to really show the size of the area, I suppose. Just a quick disclaimer, I'm not putting the positions of their areas on this visual, I'm only showing the size of the areas in comparison. So starting off the list, we have our man Badeu. Badeu is considered as one of the best aim and tech players in Osu, also specialising in low AR, easy DT and high note density jumps. It may be surprising to you that Badeu uses a relatively small area compared to others in this list. He uses an area of 55.42mm by 38.19mm, resulting in a ratio of 1.451 to 1. Note that this ratio is the length to width ratio. The smaller the number, the more square-shaped the area is. What this means is that with a smaller ratio, the distance required to move horizontally across the screen is reduced. In essence, it becomes easier to hit horizontal jumps, for example. This is a great idea if you struggle to aim your cursor sideways, as the default ratio is 1.778 to 1, the same aspect ratio as a 1080p monitor. Badeu decides that hovering is the most comfortable for him. You might think his aim could be unstable and not consistent with such a small area, but he proves you wrong, setting unbelievable aim scores such as a Full Moon Night 10-star 8 miss, Haywire Insight SS, the first Masterpiece DTFC and much more. The decision to use a small area therefore is not a bad decision. Players such as FlyingTuna, Merami and mrekk also use a small area. So don't feel that being on the smaller side of things will hold you back, because it won't. Next up is Shigei's area. Cookiezi, Chocomin, whatever you want to call him. Now this man is a bit of a tricky one to follow up on in terms of tablet information, or really any playstyle related information, because he's changed his grip a lot in the past few years. He's changed his area a lot as well, and I believe his most recent area was full area before he quit W. But what I'm about to show you now is his area in 2018, confirmed in the YouTube video, which is 80.5mm by 54.4mm, resulting in a 1.48 to 1 ratio. These values are converted from Wacom coordinates. He decides that hovering with his pinky as the main support for his hand position is what's most comfortable for him. Shigei uses the drivers provided with Wacom, so to get his area, you have to input the coordinates rather than define an area in millimeters. I've come to these measurements by using the Wacom area button in Hawku drivers here, which may not be 100% accurate, but it's as close as we'll get. I suppose, relative to the rest of the areas that I'm about to show you, Shigei's area in 2018 could be called the middle ground in terms of area size. It's not too big, it's not too small, it's more of a medium kind of area. Maybe a good place to start with if you don't know what area you want to use. I'll explain this more later in the video. Moving on to the larger areas, Vaxei uses an area of 120mm by 67.5mm, resulting in a ratio of 1.778 to 1, the default aspect ratio for a 1080p monitor, but I think I said this already. He used to hover back in 2016, but now decides that dragging is more comfortable for him. Players who also have an area on the larger side of the spectrum include Mathi, who hovers with 110mm by 61.88mm, idke, who drags with 121mm by 68.58mm, and Rafis, who also drags with 135 by 75.94mm. All of these players are using the default aspect ratio, 1.778 to 1. I don't have much to say about these areas. Maybe a common theme that I can draw between these guys is that their no-mod or hard rock consistency is pretty much on par with their DT ability, but don't take my words for granted. The area you choose will not necessarily affect what kind of player you are. Again, maybe a dying question for some of you guys. Oh, what does the best player in the world use? White Cat decides that hovering is comfortable for him. He uses 124.04 by 87.97mm. This is an area converted from Wacom coordinates, which results in the ratio being 1.41 to 1. Now this is the most square-shaped area of all the ones I'm covering today, which is quite interesting, but there you go. Area is preference. And now we have the greatest chance in all OCA history. The full area players. These players are known for having the biggest dicks and the biggest arms in the observable universe. Alright, where were we? Ah yes, full area players. They include the following: WubWoofWolf, Bubbleman, Shigei before he quit W, and of course many others. I'm pretty sure that all of these players prefer the dragging playstyle, but correct me if I'm mistaken. Quite an interesting fact here. It looks like full area players tend to be very consistent with their aim. They perform very well in tournaments no matter what kind of map is chosen. A common trait you can see here is that they're all very good at no-mod and HR consistency. I guess that's because with the larger area you get greater precision, which is a fact. It also means therefore that the margin of error when aiming is reduced. A downside I suppose is that aiming requires a lot more movement, potentially draining stamina when going for faster scores. If you know of any DT players that use full area, you can let me know down in the comments below. And as I'm recording this, of course Bubbleman sets a ridiculous score on Speed of Link and Airman DT, the female version. So maybe full area doesn't limit your speed after all. So there we have it. I've showcased a huge variety of areas that top players use, proving that area is preference and that you should choose what's comfortable. Don't be ashamed for what area you end up with. What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? What the f? The biggest Chad, the strongest Osu player that the world has ever seen. That title belongs to Xooty or xootynator. Just look at that area she plays with, holy shit! It's bigger than my house! And here on the visual, oh god, oh no, it's bigger than the CTH480. Her area is 215.90 by 137.16mm, which is a ratio of 1.574, so again, more square shaped, but whatever's comfortable I suppose. It just goes to show that area is preference. Anything can work out if you find it comfortable. And now, I'll move on to how you can find an area that's comfortable for you. And I'll be honest, it's literally trial and error. Here's a few tips that I can give you to get you started. Maybe start off with, I don't know, the middle ground, 80mm on the force aspect ratio, and play for a bit. Determine whether you feel like you're struggling to reach circles, or if you're over aiming. If you're struggling to reach the circles, then lower the area. If you're over aiming, then increase the area. It's really vague, I know, but I can't lay out the perfect settings for you because everyone is different. You just have to figure it out on your own. Increase or decrease by, I don't know, maybe 5mm when you feel it's really too large or small. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it is quite a lot. Then once you feel like you're getting more comfy with the area, I suppose an adjustment of 5mm is too noticeable. So the smaller adjustments like plus or minus 0.1mm for example, can be applied until you feel your aim is controllable. I think that's the best term to use here, controllable. Here's my next tip. I've mentioned it before and I'll mention it again. If you feel that your horizontal aim is bad, for example you can't reach circles that are too far to the side of your screen, then try unticking force aspect ratio and adjust the length of the area. Decrease it to make it easier to move sideways. It's absolutely fine to do this. Loads of top players do it, as I've mentioned before. Speaking of aim, I'm going to tell you now that you will not see an improvement from mouse to tablet instantly. It doesn't work like that, so don't be mad if you aim like a 7-digit. It takes time and a lot of practice to get used to it. So don't come to me saying, "Oh, I can't find the perfect area, I'll never find it." Because the reality is, the perfect area exists only when you practice with it long enough. Now, it's time for a conclusion. I've covered many examples of top players with a huge variety of areas. Small or large, it doesn't stop you from being a good player. I literally talked about an area as small as 55.42mm to an area that's like 215.9mm in length, and they're all top players. So I'll say it again, area is preference, as all things are with Osu. There is no perfect area. You can only find it once you've chosen an area and have gotten very comfy with it. Then I suppose it becomes close to being perfect. When getting started, adjust the area until you feel like your aim is controllable. Instinctively understand and ask questions like, can I reach circles in the corners? Am I over aiming or under aiming? These sorts of questions. Also, one final tip from me. Once you've found an area that is really comfortable as a beginner, or even an experienced user, I'd suggest to avoid changing the area by large increments from that point onwards. It tends to be counterproductive in my opinion, and you will not get consistent aim. Alright, that's enough from me today. Hope you guys found this informational video useful. If you did, hit that like button, and if you love informational videos, hit that subscribe button. My next video in this series is all about hover and drag, so stay tuned if you're interested. For now, peace out my friends.